Good morning, neighbors. June Margolin here with Huntington Matters. We are here with the next installment of our candidate interviews for election 2025. Behind the camera is Dana Richter, our vice president, who's monitoring the video, and Diane Shaver in the next room monitoring the audio. Today, we are so thankful to and honored to have legislator Rebecca Sanin come join us for a chat today about the things that are important to her and how she plans to serve you as residents of, what's your area?
So Huntington Station, South Huntington, part of Comac, part of Dix Hills, part of Melville, all of Elwood, part of Northwest Brentwood.
Okay, got it. And then more south. Great. All right, so good morning. Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Tell us about yourself and why you decided to step forward to serve our community as a Suffolk County legislator.
Absolutely. So this isn't really what I do, it's who I am. I have been a public servant my entire life. I've worked either in government or the nonprofit sector. And I really felt like we need more people in the legislature and in policymaking who understand the big picture of issues in a time that is so challenging. So in my time originally working in the county, I helped lead the county through Superstorm Sandy and all of the disaster recovery that went into that. Then I was in the nonprofit sector serving as a CEO where I led our region, not just our county, through COVID-19, both recovery and still continuing the long-term recovery from Sandy, which really impacted our region for a very long time. And I also led the census efforts to get our region the dollars that we need, the $1 billion of funding for our federal investments locally, and that was with coalitions of hundreds and hundreds of people across the island to make sure people are counted and to make sure we got the resources we needed here. And then as a Huntington Station resident, quite frankly, I have felt that both Republicans and Democrats over the years have not necessarily invested the way they should in our community, and I know how to get things done. I've been an executive, I've led large coalitions, I know how to work across the aisle and really build compromise, and I wanted to bring that so I could invest in our beautiful community.
Excellent. All right. What have you accomplished in your elected position or work experience that you're the most proud of that directly benefits our community?
So, I could talk about a lot of things that I've done in my work experience over the years, but let me talk about since I've been in office, since that's what people are interested in today. So certainly in Huntington Station, CBS, the Five Corners over there is an area that has been long an issue. And so I worked really closely with CBS, both corporate and their landlords, two different landlords since I've been in office, to get them to pave the parking lot, to get them to paint the building, to get them to start landscaping and addressing pollution. I work with the Huntington Station Business Improvement District to get garbage cans so we can address pollution. And then we have a huge capital project that we're doing on that corner that's going to improve safety and improve the way that the area feels and looks, which is a really important symbol to the community that we're investing locally. So that's really important to me. I introduced a bill to get firefighters and EMS volunteers a percentage of our county workforce affordable housing, which is really important because these people are running. Yep, these are people who are running into places that the rest of us are running out of, and they need to be able to live and work in the communities that they serve. I created the first pre-apprenticeship program in all of Suffolk County, which I'm really excited about in the Brentwood part of my district that we are hopefully going to bring to the Huntington part very soon. Which helps kids who are not going to college to get a leg up in terms of getting into labor unions and getting good paying jobs, which is really important. I created Handle with Care. I didn't create it, it's a national program, but I brought it to the Huntington School District, which is a program where there's a partnership between law enforcement and the school district. So when law enforcement responds to a home and there's children, they send a Handle with Care message to the district those children go to with the address. And so if that kid comes into school the next day and their homework isn't done, they're not punished. They get the resources they need to mitigate trauma and live their best lives. And then on the environmental side, I'm very proud to have led the bipartisan effort in the legislature and then partnering with the town to preserve Stanhope Stables as an equestrian center and making sure that we are not developing there, but that we are preserving this beautiful space that our families really enjoy and love. And then, of course, I've brought lots of resources to the district, first-time home buyer seminars, Narcan trainings, all different kinds of resources. I raised thousands and thousands of professional clothing for Career Couture to help our neighbors who are seeking jobs to feel confident and have the clothes they need to look and feel their best. And these are things that I think are really important too at the smaller level, the backpacks that I've been able to secure for kids and some of those resources that families right now who are hurting more than ever really need.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for all that.
Thank you.
By the way, and the capital improvement project is not the sewers.
No, it's separate from the
It's
sewers.
separate from the sewers.
Absolutely.
So
It's
those
on
us
the
that are
corner of
neighbors
Pulaski
there,
and Depot where there are accidents every day,
constantly, all
where
the
we need
pedestrians.
ADA compliant curbs, where we need better
Yeah.
crosswalks, where we need countdown timers.
Yeah.
I have, my vision is that area of our district can really become a hamlet and a
Yeah.
place that people are so proud of. I also worked with the Huntington Station Business Improvement District and the landlord at CBS very, very intensely to be able to get permission for us to invest cameras there, which the second precinct can then monitor, which addresses the safety of the area, addresses the retail theft for CVS, which has become an issue over the last few years. And so I'm really excited about
Yeah,
it,
that's
quite frankly.
great.
And it's just
Thank
the
you for
beginning.
that.
I'm just getting started on that area. We're going to do a lot.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
As a neighbor who lives right there, I appreciate it. What do you have to say to disengaged voters who think their vote doesn't matter, and how will you plan to inspire them to get to the polls?
So for me, this is actually almost an issue that is spiritual, if that makes sense, right? So when people say that their vote doesn't matter, for me, that feels like they're saying they don't matter. And quite frankly, you know, everybody's voice is so vital in the civic process. So what I've been doing since I've been a legislator is working with all of our school districts and really getting in there, talking to AP Gov classes, talking to our elementary students, teaching them about voting, teaching them about the process, and asking them questions. Why is it that young people, for example, in the last presidential election, were such a small voting demographic? And so I've asked them why, and many of them have said exactly what you just asked. Well, we didn't know that it mattered. We didn't think it would matter. So I'm out there every day trying to send the message that not only does your vote matter, but your voice matters, not just on election day, but throughout the process. And I want to hear from you. I don't care, you know, what your political party is. I don't care what your background is. I don't care what your religion is. Teach me what's important to you so I can best serve you. And I think when we do that and we lift up our community, I think the message we learned during COVID is that if any part of our community is hurting, every part is impacted. And so if anybody feels like they are isolated from the process, it means that we're not doing our best as a community. So I try to lift everybody up by being out there in the community and talking to people about how much they matter to me and how much they matter to our society.
Yeah, it's true. Every vote definitely counts, 100%. Magic wand.
Yes.
If you could guarantee to get exactly what you want right away, what is something that you would fix or improve in the town of Huntington? And what is something you never want to make changes to?
So are you going to give me a magic wand? Because I would love it.
Yeah. Yeah, but she would use it like, how long do I have it? Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, I would. So, I mean, I think the two changes that I hear from my neighbors is so important, right? Is the affordability issues we have are a big deal here in Huntington. So addressing affordability, the second one would be sewers. We need to have, you know, we need to protect our water quality and we need to be sewered across the region, and sewers obviously play into affordability as well. So those would be the two things I would change. The things I would never change, well, quite frankly, I think we have the best neighbors in the world. And so I would never change the community that I serve because I'm so proud to be a Huntington resident. And I'm so proud to do the work we do. But the sort of more seasoned answer to that question that quite frankly I think is important is the way that we operate here is so important. I'm a legislator. I'm a member of the Democratic Party. I work so closely with my Republican colleagues on the town board. I work so closely with the fire departments, with our school districts, with our libraries. This is what community is supposed to be. We're not at the local level supposed to be, you know, polarized and extremists and, you know, sort of out of control. We need to come together and get things done. And we do better when every stakeholder feels like they have a chair at the table. And I believe that Huntington is unique in the way that we do that, because as a Suffolk County legislator, as I work across the county, I really see that what we have here is something to be treasured. And so that's something I would never change.
That's very cool. Yeah, Huntington is definitely, we're unique in the county, even within the precincts and stuff. We're just a very hyper engaged.
Yeah,
community.
absolutely.
We care passionately.
Every event that you go to, you see, you know, stakeholders across, you know, so many different places.
Yeah, and there's lots of them. And now that you cover so many different areas, you get to see good perspective. Okay, civics lesson. What is the job description of a Suffolk County legislator, and what is the legislature as a whole responsible for?
So I probably would have a different answer to this than other folks, because I have a very personal perspective on the role. So obviously it's policy making, right? We're passing laws, we're debating resolutions and issues all the time. And of course, we're overseeing our, you know, county budget, we're overseeing the college, we're overseeing social services, public health, public safety, our parks program. So there's a lot of oversight where we partner with the county executive, who's the executive branch, to make sure we're as the legislature overseeing and protecting our natural resources and doing that important work. But to me, honestly, the role of a legislator is a lot more than that. It's about taking care of your community. And so I look at that as, how do I bring resources to our community? So whether that's money, or whether that's, as I talked about before, national programs or job training programs, bringing resources that have nothing to do with lawmaking.
Right.
And then, thirdly, taking care of our neighbors. And so, constituent response to me is vital. It's how I learn what's happening for people. And what I've learned in the last year and a half is that many of our neighbors, after you deliver them the resources they need. I'll give you an example. I have a constituent who's an 85-year-old veteran. I come from a long line of veterans, and I care a lot about our veteran community. And he reached out to me a while back. He and his wife live together and alone. He doesn't have kids, and his wife has Alzheimer's. And so he was struggling with her progression. And so I worked with him to help him with all different kinds of things, services for her, but also assistance with food, not because he was struggling financially, but it was hard for him to manage caregiving, and he needed assistance with other things. And so we got all these things for him. And then I realized, because of the calls that continued, that he was also just lonely and needed a friend to talk to. And so I set up a weekly call with him, and I would call and just check in and say, how you doing this week? What's going on? What do you need? And there was nothing that would come from it that would be anything he necessarily needed. He just needed to know he was cared about. And I think that is our job as elected officials. Yeah. People talk about politics, and politics are so nasty. To me, politics are the vehicle to public service. It should never be the destination. It should never be about ego. It should be about service.
And that's a lesson for us all as neighbors too, because we get so busy with our lives. We don't necessarily want to be intrusive in this culture that we have, where it's like, why are you knocking on my door? Right. Like these older folks that we have in our community.
And they need us.
Definitely should touch base with them.
And we have a growing elderly population here in Huntington, and they need us. They need us to show up.
All right. Good to know. Okay. What legislation or initiatives have you sponsored that was adopted?
So I've co-sponsored lots of different bills. I think the one that I'm most proud of that I initiated was the bill I talked about quickly earlier, which was to set aside a percentage of affordable housing for our firefighters and for our EMS volunteers. And that came from, quite frankly, when I was elected, I sat down and I met with every single one of the fire departments in our district. And I learned from them how difficult recruitment and retention was. And a lot of it had to do with affordability. In fact, most of it did. So you have young people that join the force, and they're eager and excited, and the departments invest in them, both financially and in terms of training and all of these things. Yeah. And then a couple of years later, they're like, I don't want to live in mom's basement anymore. And so then they leave for North Carolina or for Florida or for other places. And the reality is that our volunteers save us millions and millions of dollars every year in Suffolk County. And if we ever had to go to a paid force, there would be no conversations anymore about affordability. So we have a responsibility to look at ways to incentivize volunteerism and to support the people who are running into danger when we are running out. I personally was in New York City on September 11th, and it really affected me and always has. And I just always remember what our volunteers do on a regular basis, whether it's a fire in a garage at a home or whether it's a mass casualty incident. This is work that can be traumatic. And we have a responsibility to remember that they are giving up Christmases with their families and Thanksgivings and, important milestones to take care of us. So we have to take care of them too.
Very good. All right. And now tell us about this year's Suffolk County Proposition 2. That's turn your ballot over. And there's 2 propositions on the back, and one is specific to Suffolk County.
So the issue with legislators going from 2 to 4 year terms. So I wholeheartedly supported putting this on the ballot because I believe this is a decision that the voters should decide. I don't believe it's a decision that we should decide for sure. This is not a new thing. It was proposed, I think it was a few years ago. I'm not exactly sure which year it was, but I think it was about 5 years ago. And it was rejected wholeheartedly by the voting public, I think by about 70%.
Wow.
So we'll see what happens this year. There's arguments against it for sure. Part of the reason that the even year voting was put in place was to increase voter turnout. So this would sort of circumvent that to some degree. And then there's reasons for it. I mean, as a sitting legislator, I can tell you that going to a 4 year term would mean that there's less campaigning that's happening and more service.
And you'll be able to get more done.
You'll be able to get more done.
Yeah,
and
I've
so
always said that. I was like, why is this 2 years?
some of the arguments make sense, some of them don't.
Yeah.
But I think it's up to the voting public to decide, and I look forward to hearing what they think.
Yeah. I mean, with the majority of terms already of every other public office is 4 years.
And then some people feel very strongly like accountability is helped when it's every 2 years. And so, you know, I don't pretend to know the best answer. I also believe deeply that sometimes we need to do things and see what the impact is.
Yeah.
And then recalibrate if the impact isn't what we hope for. And so that's how I look at everything. We have to be flexible, and we'll see what the voters say.
All right, great. So turn your ballot over, vote whatever you think for Proposition 2. Sewers in Huntington Station. We've heard a lot about the sewers in Huntington Station. What does that mean for the rest of us who aren't getting hooked up, and how can it help us?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember being an assistant deputy county executive sitting in the Dennison building with my then boss, Steve Ballone, and talking about nitrogen and, you know, the danger to our water systems, and really encouraging that we need a revitalization in Huntington Station, and that sewers were sort of the crux of being able to do that in a way that wasn't Band-Aids, but then, you know, really creating systems change. And so really excited that he invested there, really excited the town invested there, really excited to see what the future looks like. The reality is we need to sewer much more than we're sewering today, but it costs a lot of money, and infrastructure is a big deal. And so I can't wait for the day in which we can get rid of cesspools. And, you know, we do need to upgrade IA systems in the meantime. I'm very much supportive of that.
IA system?
So it just better cesspool systems.
Oh, those upgraded cesspool systems.
Yeah, they're just better. They're,
gotcha.
you know, better at taking care of our water quality. There's a lot of things we need to do to take care of our water quality that don't involve sewers. You know, we have way too many pesticides, you know, that are going into our groundwater. We live above our sole aquifer. But going back to sewers, you know, my vision would be that we ultimately have a sewer in Suffolk County, but it's going to take time to get there.
Yeah.
This is the first step in our community. I'm excited to see
and I think
it expand.
Was really, really well done, because they fixed the trunk line, which is the main line that's going to take the little section that we are having sewered all the way down to the Southwest Sewer District, Bergen Point. So now that's going to be big enough to handle
and I think what
future expansion.
Future expansion, and there are projects happening all across the county, and every one of these projects helps us get to a better place. And so I guess also what I'm excited about is that, I mean, as much as I fear sometimes AI, and as much as I fear the evolving technology that is hard to keep up with, it's exciting too. So there may be new systems and new ways to address these issues that come out in the future. And that's why I try to really keep abreast of new research and understanding what the opportunities look like.
Awesome. All right. This is the #1 question and issue our neighbors have talked to you about. What can the candidates do to bring in more workforce and actually affordable housing for our graduates and seniors? And what can our legislators do to encourage developers to build for this underserved group? So this actually means that even the HUD affordable formula is too high.
Yeah. And so, you know, first of all, obviously we want to preserve our quality of life here in Huntington, right? So we need more housing, but we don't need density. And I think that that's an important thing to say. We also need to make sure we're preserving our environment. And for me, that's very important, right? We have to be very careful when we are building to make sure we are protecting, you know, our vulnerable land. And so that is something that is vital. I think we need to think about, you know, sewers is a big piece of this. So if we want to develop, you know, affordable housing, we need to have wastewater infrastructure that's available and ready to go. And so we do have places where there are strip malls and where there are, you know, wastewater treatment systems that already exist that are dilapidated and that are, you know, harming our community, quite frankly. Because anytime you have a dilapidated space, you're sending a message to the community that they don't have to care about that space. They don't have to value it. So I would like to see, you know, us be very strategic. I think development should be smart development, not just development for development's sake. Again, considering the environment. But I also would just say on this issue, and I talk about this a lot, both in the legislature and in public, that this isn't just about housing. This is a public health crisis that we have because our young people are leaving. our seniors are in housing that is inappropriate for them. I hear it all the time when I'm knocking on the door talking to seniors who say, look, I'm widowed. Look at this house that I'm living in. I don't want to live here. I can't live here anymore. But I'm not leaving the community I've lived in for 65 years.
Right. And
I want to downsize, but there's no diversity of housing stock that's appropriate for me at this place in the trajectory of my lifespan. And so what that also means is that you have seniors that are living in places that aren't necessarily safe for them at this moment, which puts more pressure on our EMS responders, right? So you're taxing the infrastructure that way. And then when young people are leaving, that means that our older people don't have somebody to check in on them and to make sure they're doing okay. And for our young people that are leaving, it also means they maybe don't have a grandparent to help them with, childcare responsibilities. So I think of it as a public health issue and one we need to really have honest conversations about in order to make progress.
Yeah, it's a very layered problem.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and I had actually asked in one of the interviews, I forget who I was talking to, I think it was a town person, about duplexes, because we have a duplex and they're not built anymore, and they've been stopped, and I thought it was the town that stopped it, and Gail Lamberta corrected me and said it was the county that changed the requirement where they had to be built on a minimum of a half an acre.
Okay.
So that's why they stopped.
Interesting.
Because of the cesspools.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Right. So that's why we can't build them here.
And so
that would be something that could create an affordable.
100%. And again, this is where we have to, what I was saying before about flexibility. So sometimes, I remember, my dad grew up largely in Port Jefferson and the Setauket area at Poquat. And I remember when I was a kid driving out there with him and to see my grandparents, and he'd be like, there was a potato farm here and a potato farm there. Our island has changed, right?
Yeah.
Very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Our roadways have changed. So we have to adapt and we have to be willing. There might be a law in the books that doesn't make sense anymore that we have to look at again. And I think that that's our job as lawmakers, is to be flexible and to, really consider what's best for our community and do it with input and do it with data and make sure we're making smart decisions.
Yeah. So keep that one in the
Got it.
All right, great.
Somehow I think you're going to remind me too.
All right, county infrastructure and major roadways. Many major thoroughfares in Huntington. This is a tricky one. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer it, but many major thoroughfares in Huntington, like Park Avenue, Deer Park Avenue, and Oakwood Road, are county roads that are extremely congested at rush hour. What can be done to alleviate traffic congestion, improve pedestrian safety, especially near schools, and maintain the conditions of these roads that our community uses daily?
So it's a great question. And thank you for that question.
I was like, why? But
I'm going to answer it in two different ways. So I get a lot of calls into the office about issues with not just traffic, but driving behavior. Yes. I'm constantly on the phone with the 2nd and the 3rd precinct talking about, we need to set up enforcement at this space because people are going through stop signs and there's danger and all those kinds of conversations. What I have really reflected on is that we've had a lot of education for folks about good driving behavior, both not driving while intoxicated, not driving distracted, and yet things are still a disaster. And so I think we have to start looking at what is called crime prevention through environmental design, which is looking as we build infrastructure at ways to alleviate and change driving behavior through the actual design. So it may be creating roundabouts in certain places. It may be.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it could be. I don't love roundabouts either.
I don't do well.
It could be, curb management, restricting delivery trucks during certain times of day from being in certain spaces. But then again, going back to technology, we have to be willing to evolve. And so there are new technologies. There's adaptive traffic signals that use AI intelligence to change lights in real time based on traffic flow. There's smart intersection opportunities that AI is providing for folks where sensors can detect what's happening and reroute people using navigation systems so that, again, you're constantly looking at
like our GPS is doing. Yeah,
100%.
That'd be neat.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And then there's a problem around St. Anthony's too, around pickup and dismissal, which is in county, but that's a traffic light thing that might be able to be adjusted.
We could look at that. Yep. And there's also this thing called green wave systems. Again, I'm just starting to learn about all of this stuff, but when people are driving the speed limit, there's ways that lights can adjust themselves to provide green lights for people who are driving the speed limit. And so there's, again, technology is evolving, and we need to look at crime prevention through environmental design and use of evolving technology to start to reshape how we function.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Forward looking. I like it. All right. Suffolk County's been experiencing the brain drain, which we talked about, where young people are leaving over the past few decades because of the high cost of living. What can be done to bring businesses back to Suffolk County so we can grow our community?
So we got to look at, as I said, as I did with the firefighter bill, and workplace, workforce incentives for sure when it comes to affordable housing. That's a huge piece of it. And again, I go back to the sewers because to me that's at the crux of a lot of this. But then, the other thing that I think is really important is to start to think about, as we're designing new spaces, creating innovation hubs, creating places where people want to gather. By the way, the Census 2030 is coming up, not so far away. And that's another really important piece of bringing businesses back. So when we look at businesses, they look at data. They have to make a decision. Do they want to be in this part of a community? Because are we going to get the business we need if we locate here? So making sure that people are counted in the census is one piece of that, and an important piece. And then creating spaces where people gather so that it benefits the business to have people nearby is another opportunity. But again, creating incentives. I think we have to look at workforce incentives, private-public partnerships, and things we can do to remind people that America's first suburb is still an amazing, amazing place, and we're evolving. And we want you back here in Huntington.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we made it to the second page.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
I talk fast.
We all recognize that the economy, as well as competition from the digital world, has been tough on local mom and pop businesses. What would you do to help them through these tough times, if you've already answered?
Yeah, no. So our small businesses are the heart and soul of our communities, right? They're the lifeblood. And the reality is nobody wants to live in a community with just commercial large businesses. We want those small mom and pop businesses that we celebrate holidays with and that our families are known in, like Cheers, right? We walk in, people know our name. It feels good. So I've done a lot of things already. Obviously, I've hosted focus groups with our small businesses to understand what's important to them, what's happening, so that I can learn from them, so I can be helpful. I brought Trellis into Huntington, which is a program like Amazon, where people can purchase online, but from our small businesses specifically. So it creates competition for Amazon and for Home Depot and the big box stores for our retail businesses. And then I've been working with our local businesses that are hurting. I did a big rally for Zaro's, which is a beloved institution in Huntington, for a restaurant that's been there for 32 years, to get people to show up and remember that if we don't frequent our small businesses, we're going to lose them. And so it's on us too, as the public, to make sure we're making decisions that honor our small businesses. Yeah, it's easy to sit on our couch and just order stuff. I get that. But our small businesses need us just like we need them to have a thriving community.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Huntington Matters Neighborhood Watch celebrates 11 years, actually yesterday.
Congratulations.
I didn't post about it, but here we are. What public safety priorities do you have, and how would you work with other layers of government to achieve them?
Yeah, so I'm really proud to be endorsed by all the Suffolk County law enforcement agencies. And a big part of that is my relationship with public safety. It goes back far before I was a legislator. So I created neighborhood watches in Huntington Station back in, I think, 2008, when there were issues around the Jack Abrams school district that were causing real challenges in our community. When I was the CEO at the nonprofit that I led, I worked with Drew Fiorello, who used to be a school resource officer, who now is in Homeland Security for Suffolk County Police Department, to train all of our Suffolk County nonprofits in active shooter training, because we were seeing a rise in that across the country. And I was concerned that our public servants knew how to respond if such a crisis hit them. And I did the same thing in Nassau County with his Homeland Security counterpart over there. I think in terms of other things that I've done as a legislator, definitely Narcan training, bringing that both to our fire departments as well as our general public has been important, to keep people safe and to make sure we're saving lives as regular people, right? Disaster preparedness trainings that I've been bringing to the district is really important. Working with our law enforcement on issues as they emerge. I'm on the phone with the deputy inspector, the second, probably every week, as people bring me issues, so that we can, strategize together when it's a law enforcement issue and when it's not, sometimes, to make sure we're keeping people safe. Driving behavior is a big issue, as I talked about before, and that's why I want to see some changes there in terms of how we're addressing it with technology. And then I would just say lastly that as we go into this next term, I've been doing a lot of work meeting with the DA's office, the police department, the PBA about vaping, because I'm really concerned about it. I hear it from my superintendents every time I'm in the school districts that this is continuing to be a real issue. Legislator Bontempi has also done some work on this, and I think there's a lot we can get done in the county to protect people, and particularly protect our children from doing things that they aren't aware of the impact of. And so that's something I'm trying to, whenever I propose anything, I don't just do it willy-nilly. I really try to bring all the stakeholders together and make sure I'm learning the best ways to do things. So that's something I've been working on for a while.
And we need, honestly, we need more funding for the police department to be able to get some more officers.
Yeah, no question about it. We need more funding. We need also we have opioid settlement dollars that we're sitting on in the county that I've been very actively calling out that we need to see the next issue of our the next issuance of RFPs so that organizations that are evidence tested and provide quality services are protecting our families that are hurting. I think a lot of times people are unaware that COVID-19 was such an incredibly cataclysmic time for our society with everything shut down that a lot of people developed substance abuse disorders. It's, a few years later, 5 years later, but that doesn't mean that people are doing better. And so we need to really make sure that we're addressing what comes to my office all the time, which is substance abuse issues and mental health issues that are facing families and that are really, hurting our communities. And so that's why I work really hard on that and work with all of the nonprofits that do that work to bring resources locally. But I'd like to see things done in a bigger way countywide.
Yeah, big time. And we need more school resource officers.
Understood.
One per precinct.
Okay.
At least one. All right. Public health and social services. We talked about that. The opioid crisis, mental health services, and support for vulnerable populations are significant countywide issues. How will you ensure that Huntington residents have sufficient access to county-run public health resources, addiction services, and social safety net programs?
Yeah, so I sit on the Human Services and Seniors Subcommittee in the legislature as well as the Health Committee. Really important that we're working with all of the different providers and that we're getting data and understanding what the trends are, and that as we're looking at county allocations for resources, they're based on trends. So a lot of times we see in government that people just fund the same things over and over and over, and they don't look at outcomes. They're not looking at data-driven decision making. That's what I believe in. We need to really be smart and understand our society is evolving, just like technology is evolving, and making sure we're meeting the needs that we have today.
Yeah, that's great. And then that's actually your background too.
It is, and
it's
my heart and soul. Getting people. I just did the PBA podcast yesterday, and I said this there, and I say it all the time. I deeply believe that people are good inside. We have a lot of people that end up in bad places for lots of different reasons and people who become bad actors. But if you can intervene and if you can prevent things from happening that end up, leading people on a bad trajectory, then people can live their best lives. And if everybody can live their best lives, then we can change some of the crises we have in our community. So I believe that's the way to do it, prevention and intervention. And so I'm a big proponent of that. And it's why you always will see me standing with our nonprofit community, because they are public servants who the county contracts out to do the work, quite frankly, cheaper, with less resources, and they get it done and they deliver. And we should be really proud of organizations like Tri-CYA in our community who fight every day for the future of our families.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So I know this is another very important one for you, environmental stewardship and the county parks. Suffolk County manages important natural resources and parks within Huntington, such as Quandre Hall and West Hills. How will you advocate for the protection of our regional environment and secure funding for the maintenance and improvement of our county parks for the benefit of all residents?
So when I became a legislator, one of the things that was really important to me was to sit on the EPA committee, Environmental Parks and Agriculture. I am a champion in the environment. I have been my whole life. So there's a bunch of things. One, as a legislator, again, going back to how I look at the role differently, children are not going to save what they don't learn to love. And so I've worked really hard to get into our schools and to read books about the environment and talk about championing our future and getting kids excited about it. I brought the only countywide Earth Day celebration to West Hills County Park, working with civic associations over there, West Hills Civic, to bring, again, all the nonprofit organizations that are doing work on the environment so kids and families could have experiential opportunities to learn about ways that they can be good partners. West Hills County Park is a gem, and we need to protect it. We needed to protect Stanhope Stables. That's why I made sure that as so much land preservation happens on the east end, that we fight for the west end, right? And that we get that preserved and not developed. I've voted since I've been a legislator to preserve, I think, about 549 acres of open space, and about 178 or 179 acres of farmland. And I will always, always, always fight for our environment and champion. And that's why I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club and the New York League of Conservation Voters, because I have an environmental record that goes back many years before being a legislator. And it's a personal thing for me too. I love Long Island. I joke with people that I'm the female version of Billy Joel. Like, not that I can sing as well, but that I love Long Island as much. And what do I love about Long Island? It's our natural resources and our people. So we got to take care of them.
Love that. Yeah. Great. All right. How much priority do you place on preservation of open space, land, and improvements in public infrastructure, which clearly we've already answered all of that. All right. So, and how would you take advantage of technology and new communication strategies? Looks like you look into this all the time, to increase transparency in county government and make it easier for busy residents to stay informed and participate in the decision-making process?
So let me answer that in two ways. Technology is really important, so I'm going to get to that. But I want to say that it doesn't replace human contact.
Right.
And so my theory of outreach has always been, and what I've taught my staff is, we go where people play, pray, and eat. Right? So we work with our faith-based organizations. We work with our recreational spaces. We work with our local community to make sure we're there. And so you all know I'm everywhere. Like, I really try to be everywhere because, you know, people shouldn't have to come to you in government. You need to go to where people are. And when you're in their space, it's a lot more intimate in terms of what they share with you than when you're, you know, sitting in an office behind a desk. And so that's a really important part of outreach. And then from a technology perspective, well, certainly it's working with people like Huntington Matters, right, to get information out.
I'm trying.
Diane often says to me, you know, are you going to be at this event? And I'm like, I'm not sure. She's like, did you look at our calendar? No, I need to look at your calendar every day when I get up. I know that. But quite frankly, you know, it's about looking at those tools. And so I have a person on my team who really focuses on communication strategies. And so she's dedicated to that. And so you've seen a lot of the social media I put out as videos, because what we've learned is that people prefer that to reading. It's an easy way to get information out to the community. So we've really tried to change our digital footprint in a way that is responsive to the feedback that we get. And then constantly looking at new tools. You know, I'm not so cool. Like, I'm not on TikTok doing dances like some people.
You could be.
But I could be. And I'm learning. I'm learning.
Especially with the puppies.
Yes. And so we're evolving, both from a technology perspective, but definitely not letting go of the human element and being out in community with people. We have to get back to seeing our humanity in each other. And that comes from being together as a Huntington family.
Right. That's awesome. So that is all that we have here. However,
I went too fast.
No, it's good, because I have a couple of questions. Now they're not going to yell at me, because I can talk to you. I can ask you things. So we're advocating, you know, forever for a new alert system for Suffolk County Police Department for residents. So to me, that's part of this answer, is putting that technology in everybody's hands and devices that they already use. And I know that everything was paused because we were waiting for the East End to be joined to the 911 system. And do you have
I don't have an update. I don't have an update, but what I could tell you is that Commissioner Catalina is very committed to making sure people have what they need to not only be safe, but to feel safe. And those are not always the same thing, right?
Correct.
And
that's what's so great about the app.
100%.
You'll be able to look at it and be like, oh, they're there for me whenever I need
100%.
them.
And quite frankly, our second precinct is very focused on that as well. So when you work with our officers in the second precinct, what you hear all the time is that they want residents to know that they're accessible, and they are trying to be accessible. You know, what other communities do you find, you know, police officers going to the renaming of a street? right? This is because the idea is we want to be there for people. And so that's from a technology perspective, but also from a humanity perspective. Like we need to have relationships don't happen as keyboard warriors, right? They happen when we connect. So I think that we need to evolve in both spaces and continue to do that.
For sure. That's great. And then there are lots of job opportunities with the county too.
There are.
Lately.
Yep.
We see a lot of them. So
there's way too many vacancies. Part
of
the concern there, and I'll, say this is a lot of times the salaries are not where they need to be. And so there was a salary study that's taking place. I'm looking forward to seeing the results of it. It's something I've been pushing for, getting the results of that salary study so that when unions are negotiating, we understand sort of what that baseline is. Some of our county workers do really, really, really hard work every day. And people need to be able to live and serve in the communities that they work. And so, but I encourage everyone to go on the civil service website, to take civil service tests. There's nothing, I don't even know how to say this effectively, but being in community with people who want to serve the communities in which you live is a very special benefit of working in government. You wake up every day feeling inspired because you're making a difference where you're raising your children. You're making a difference where your parents, walked the streets. You're making a difference in a space that matters to you personally. And so government work is such a beautiful form of public service, and I encourage everybody to consider it.
That's great. Can you explain what the civil service test is and why and how?
Yeah,
and how much does it cost and what does it mean?
Taking civil service tests is a great way to end up on lists so that you can, depending on if you're reachable, depending on how you score on tests, you can be brought in for interviews to be considered for different kinds of county jobs. There are so many different departments in the county. A lot of times people don't realize that there's a breadth of jobs that's quite wide. There's a diverse of opportunities. So if you're a person who likes math, if you're a person who wants to, help people who are struggling with poverty, if you're a person who's like an epidemiologist, there are jobs for you. And so we really want to remind people, and in fact, I'll just say this too. This is something I do a lot. I go into schools. I work with the Suffolk County community colleges, government. They have a, what do you call it? Like a local government group.
Like small. Okay, got it.
I'm blanking on the name of it at the second, but it's like a government leadership program within the college. I work with them all the time. And I do mobile office hours at the college a lot as well. I do mobile office hours everywhere, but certainly at the college. Because I want to help young people understand that this is a path for them and to be excited by it. I think a lot of times what I hear is people are like, I look at the news and it's not that great. Why would I want to do that? And so we got to get back into inspiring people that if you don't like the options on your ballot, maybe you should run for office. Maybe you should consider public service as a path for you. And so I really try to say that everywhere I go, every classroom, but also, by the way, also to older people, there's, we need more educators, more nurses, more firefighters, more police officers on the legislature participating in policymaking, because that's how you get to a place that, again, involves stakeholder perspectives and gets you to a better opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. All right. I think we collectively have another. Are you going to the next thing at 10 o'clock?
I'm not going to the 10 o'clock because I have another.
You have another 10 o'clock. Gotcha.
10:30. At 10:30.
All right. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much, neighbors, for watching. Don't forget Election Day, November 4th in person.
Early voting starts Saturday.
Starts Saturday. That's October 25th. Goes through November 2nd. You can vote at Dix Hills Fire Department or the Huntington Public Library Station branch in Huntington Station. And all of the candidate interviews.
And Greenlawn Fire Department.
Oh, Greenlawn Fire Department. Oh, that's not on my list. Oh, I got to add that to the calendar.
I'll send you
there, right? It's on. Do we have the graphic? I messed up. I didn't add them to the calendar.
That's okay.
Listing.
We're reminding people now.
I'll fix it. All right. So, and then you can find all the interviews at huntingtonmatters.com. And what else do we have? Tons of resources all over the place, and you can reach out to Legislator Sanin.
Anytime. I'd love to hear from you.
Also through your social media channels.
Through every channel you can find.
We text
me all hours. It's an appendage of my body at this point.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us, neighbors, and we'll see you in a couple days with Legislator Bontempi.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.